My name is Katya, I'm the host of Creative Mornings Munich, and I'm so happy to see so many of you today here. We were not sure if we should do a December session or not, because people get very busy in December. And we said, you know what, let's do it. Let's not do it the last Friday in the month as we usually go for. Let's do it in the middle of December, and let's see, if people will come up, that can come to the event, that's good. If they don't, we'll have a very intimate event. And so many of you turned out, and I'm super happy because we are about to have a really exciting and amazing session. So before I go into the introduction of the speaker, I would like to just ask by a show of hands who has attended a Creative Mornings event in the past. Okay, quite some of you. For how many is it the first time? Nice! So welcome the new ones, and welcome back everyone who has already attended our event. I will say a few words about Creative Mornings just for you guys to understand what we're all about. And basically, we are a great morning lecture kind of event. The concept started in the US I think it was almost 10 years ago already. And it has actually very quickly spread throughout the world. And the idea is actually super simple. Once a month, we gather together in over 200 cities around the world for a creative session, for a talk about half an hour, but the main part as well is that it's around coffee and breakfast. So it's really kind of fostering this creative exchange as well from people who come here and can also meet and talk to each other. We are now present in over 60 countries, and I always give this tip as an advice to people who like to travel, or even if you're not from Munich and you are in some other cities around the world. Always check out if there is a Creative Mornings event happening around, because very often it can be a very great moment for you to meet new people, like-minded people, or even just to get inspired when you're either traveling or wherever, if you want to attend any kind of event in your local communities outside Munich. This event today wouldn't be possible. The event today wouldn't be possible without Co-Crea, who is really an amazing location. I hope that you guys are loving it as much as we do. So I would very much like to ask Christoph, yes, to join me on stage and say hello.
Good morning. Welcome to Co-Crea. Thank you for coming. There's so many people. I can't believe it. So you have a good crowd. Okay. Maybe a couple of words about us, what we are and what we stand for. Co-Crea is a place you can rent for your own workshops, and or you can come to learn from others. It's mainly about the future of work, the future of leadership, and about methods. And I call them methods for real people like you and us, methods that work. And we work together with many method developers on a global scale, I have to say. Many people who come here help us and the crowds to be better in issues around the future of work, about leadership, about agile, about creativity, and many other topics. So if you want to have a look at our website, we're going to host interesting events throughout the course of the next year during the Munich Creative Business Week. You might all know it. We're going to host 13 events about business modeling, how you develop your own career, or how you can develop your team, or how you can develop your organization in a better, more meaningful and creative way, and ultimately be more successful. And there's going to be topics also around professional branding, storytelling around your businesses, about your own person, and help you get better with that as well. So I really look forward to this talk today, and hope to see you guys back soon. Thank you.
Christoph is going to be around, so if you have any kind of questions, don't hesitate to approach him. This event as well wouldn't have been possible without our photo and video team. So there is Spinning Wheel, there is also One Wave Studio. Sorry, we forgot the logo. We will include it in the next slide. Nika, Riva, always taking care of our photos. By the way, if you are a photographer or videographers, don't hesitate to reach out to any one of the team members. We're always looking forward to have more people who could help us spread the word about Creative Mornings, because you can actually watch all the talks that are happening around the world on the CreativeMornings.com webpage. So thank you guys for being here with us and helping us spread the word further. Now, with as well, we have two global sponsors as well, MailChimp and WordPress, that are helping us spread the word to you guys and invite you to our events. So this is also highly appreciated. This is our team. You can always spot us via our badges. So in case you have any kind of questions, don't hesitate to get back to us. We always love talking to you and getting to know you better. And now, without further ado, I am very happy to introduce Cherryl to the stage. Cherryl is a really interesting person. She has a very creative background. She's from South Africa. She worked in, I think, 15 years in different agencies, and is actually now on her own path as a yoga trainer and a coach. And she has a really inspirational story to share. So I couldn't be happier to have you here with us. Cherryl, the stage is yours.
Thank you. Okay, welcome. So, an Argentinian writer and poet once said, in fact he was quite famous for saying, "Don't talk unless you can improve on the silence." Which makes me kind of nervous to stand up here and talk about silence, lest I do not improve upon the silence. But I will do my best. So, I had this really cool idea, and you have no idea how many people actually gave me this idea. It was also mine, but yeah, a lot of people said that I should get up here and be silent, because I'm talking about silence, obviously, right? And I thought, okay, I can do that. 1 minute, I'm just going to stand here and be silent, right? And then I thought, you're probably really lovely people, and I would not want to do that to you, okay? I also would not want to do that to myself, because I think it would be super awkward, right? Like really awkward. And why is that? Why is being silent so awkward, especially in a social context? And I don't have actually an easy one answer for that, but I do have a sense that it has to do with us coming face to face with a part of ourselves that we're a little bit unfamiliar with, a part of ourselves that is rather unknown, as opposed to the part of ourselves that is a construct. And in the spiritual world and in the yoga world, we call this our ego, our sense of identity. And the world that I come from, this world of yoga, identity and ego is kind of like a swear word. You know, you're not allowed to have an ego. You're supposed to get rid of your ego. But that's not necessarily the whole story. Our ego is actually incredibly helpful. A sense of identity gives us a way to be in the world, a way to connect with others. So I don't want to put this bad spin on the ego and the identity. However, I do feel like we don't pay enough attention to this other side of us that is unknown, unsocialized, largely, uncontained and uncontrolled, and probably deeply creative. And that's the part, and rather unknown, that we don't necessarily want to come into contact with on a regular basis. And that's why we so easily distract ourselves, right? We live in an age of distraction. I think we can all agree with that. It's really easy to just, of course, pick up the phone if we're in an awkward moment of silence. And you may have done that if I stood up here and was silent for 1 minute, like, oh my goodness. I'm sure there's something else going on, right? Okay. So, who meditates here? Congratulations, very good. Who does yoga? Yeah, and meditates. We're building. And who knows what mindfulness is and practices mindfulness? Okay. You're all very enlightened, very good. The reason I bring this up is because we've come to equate silence with meditation, right? Well, I certainly have. You know, it's like, okay, the best way to be silent is to practice meditation or yoga or to be more mindful. Who feels that they should meditate more? Like, even if they don't meditate? Yeah? I know, right? Yeah. Who feels like they should get to more yoga practices, or at least start yoga, right? Okay, it's never enough. And then who feels kind of guilty a little bit, like they should be doing more? No one wants to admit to that. Yeah, I'm the same. You know, if I don't meditate and if I don't get to kind of my ratio of yoga, I feel a bit bad about that because I feel like I'm not living up to my expectations. I feel like I could be happier. I could be still, you know. Yeah. Okay, so today I'm here to tell you that perhaps you don't have to feel guilty about it. And there might be a different way. There might be a different way to look at this whole silence thing. So before I do that, I want to take you a little bit back, about 8 years, to South Africa. I am happily married to a wonderful man at the time. He's still wonderful, we're just not married anymore. So, yeah. I own a beautiful yoga studio, which was a dream of mine for a few years before that happened. And I'm living in sunny South Africa. And I'm doing all the wonderful things that I am obsessed about. So I'm studying Tibetan Buddhism, I am doing yoga, I'm studying Eastern philosophy, Western philosophy, traveling to India, to Bali, leading retreats all over the world, really. And kind of all in an effort to pursue this state of transcendence, which has always been my passion and still is my obsession. And yet, I was still kind of stuck. I still felt like there was some part of myself that I couldn't access. I felt like there was a deeper thing that I had to realize, even though I was doing all of this stuff. And I'm like really studying a lot, like I was completely immersed in it. And so it was then that I decided to go on Vipassana. Has anyone heard of Vipassana? Yeah? Okay, have you been? Who's been? Ah, great. I'm sorry for you. That was, I'm sure it was tough. Okay, yeah. Yeah, right. Okay, so for those of you who don't know, it's a 10-day silent meditation. I don't really want to say retreat because that makes it sound pleasant. It's yeah, exactly. It's okay, so the deal is you go in, you have to hand your phone in so that you're not distracted. You're not allowed to read any books, no reading material, no writing material. And of course, you're not allowed to talk to anyone, and you're discouraged from even really looking at anyone. And this is the part I actually quite liked. And of course, you meditate, right, you meditate for about 10 to 14 hours a day. Want to go? So that is what I did. And I'd like to ask you, what do you think the hardest part of that would have been? Or you can just answer it for yourself. Like, what would be hard for you? Would it be the sitting? Because you have to sit, you know, like for a long time. You get breaks in between. You have breakfast and lunch, no dinner. That was rather challenging for me. Because, you know, lunch becomes an event. So yeah, does anyone want to tell me what the hardest part would be for them? Yeah?
Listening to everything going on in my head.
Yes, absolutely. It's loud. You can't ignore it. Yes. Yeah.
Being afraid of what you would miss out, like what's happening out there.
Yes, FOMO, fear of missing out. Absolutely. Yes, I definitely experienced that. Yeah, I was thinking about all the fun my friends were having, and I was like, why am I here? For me, really, the most difficult part, and a lot of people actually, I'll tell you, struggled with a physical challenge, actually. You don't realize that sitting down for that amount of time, if you're not used to it, can be extremely painful. And the only reason I know that is because I heard some of the people around me, you were allowed to talk once, and that was to ask the teacher a question. And so we naturally got to hear other people's questions. And a lot I noticed was about the physical discomfort. And because I'd done a lot of yoga, this was not really my problem. My biggest challenge was the sheer boredom. It's really not that sexy to say, but I was really just bored out of my mind. And and eventually kind of have to go through this process. And so what I'd like to say is that after 10 days of Vipassana, I just learned how to be bored. I learned how to be good at being bored, which doesn't sound that profound. But anyway, my life did change dramatically after that. Within the year, I was no longer married to the wonderful man, and I'd sold my yoga studio and moved to Germany. I'm not saying that those 10 days were the reason for that. I think that would be too much. It was kind of an accumulation of everything that I'd done that led me to making those decisions. But I definitely accessed that thing that I had a sense was there. Definitely accessed that, yeah. Okay, so because I can be somewhat extreme, because I consider this an extreme thing, I came back from that with now another practice to put on top of my 90 minutes of yoga day, 30 minutes of intense breathing practices, mantra studies, and now I had a nice meditation practice because they encourage, after you've been there for 10 days, is to meditate for 1 hour in the morning and 1 hour in the evening. And so I started doing that as well. Okay, I have to tell you that all of these things did not make me happy. They made me a little bit crazy and actually rather unhappy, which is kind of counterintuitive because these things are meant to make you happy. Like, you all meditate and do yoga and practice mindfulness. They're meant to make us happy, but you need to be able to take it to a level that is doable. And that is what my work is actually about. And it put me on the path to figuring out how can I make this stuff accessible to people that still want to have a life. Yeah, like have jobs and have relationships. And then I started realizing, okay, what can I take from this Vipassana experience? What can I take from the silence experience and make it more accessible for me and for the people that I'm teaching and coaching? Because, I was telling people you should meditate, you should do, and then it was a little bit unrelatable. So what I took was the silence I equated with boredom. And then I thought, how can I teach myself, remind myself to be bored, and is there value in that? Is there actual value in boredom? So for me, silence is giving myself permission to be bored, okay? We often say, I'm staying in tonight and I'm going to do nothing. Who says that? Like, oh, I did nothing last night. Yeah, right? Yeah, except that you were on Netflix, or whatever, Instagram, or working, But the kind of boredom that I'm talking about is the conscious practice of doing nothing. Nothing. Guilt-free nothing. Not meditating nothing. Not mindfulness nothing. Not yoga nidra, that means lying down on the floor. It's another kind of yoga practice. Nothing. Just nothing. And there are so many opportunities to do nothing in a day. And that's not just because I'm not employed. It's these little moments in between, where you can just lie down for 15 minutes and stare at the ceiling and not feel like you're being unproductive. Okay, so what is the value? there wasn't just value for myself. I did a little bit of research and found out that there's studies that have been done about this kind of thing. Thank goodness, there's always the science to fall back on. I'm not going to give you the exact science. Sorry, Raphael. He's an engineer. He likes, the science behind everything. And I found out that there are 2 benefits that I can absolutely attest to of being silently bored and allowing the mind to just do what it needs to do. The first is that it allows us to think more deeply and to be more creative. And I was like, yeah, okay, so what? Like, do we really need to think more deeply? Does the world need more creativity? Really? And then I realized, yes, absolutely. But the reason I realized that is maybe not so conventional, and that's because I equate deep thinking and deep creativity with connection with others. Because if we are only allowing ourselves to think on a shallow level, meaning we copy what others say, we don't think about things very deeply or a lot. We kind of take on a lot of opinions. We share. Now, there's a cute quote on Instagram. Share. That's it. It's not really perhaps a thought that you would challenge. It just sounded nice at the time. So and we're so busy. Who's got time to think deeply about things these days? It's like we just kind of can say at this shallow level of thinking. What then happens is that we have only the capacity to connect with someone else's thoughts on a shallow level. And then we're connecting on this shallow thinking level, but deeply wanting to be seen on a deeper level. That's what we all want. We all want to be seen at our deepest part of ourselves. And if we can't go there ourselves, of course we're not going to be able to connect with someone else on that level. And it's exactly the same with creativity. It takes a lot of courage to create something and to put it out in the world. And that's also, we do that because we want to be seen at this deeper creative level. And so our relationships can be improved, and our sense of connection can be improved. And I think this is one of the things that we really, really are in urgent need to create awareness around or give attention to, is our ability to genuinely connect with each other and not on social media and shallow connection. And it's kind of what we're doing here, I hope. So there's a guy, his name is, it's kind of like a strange, so I always get it wrong, Pico Iyer. Okay, he wrote The Art of Stillness. Has anyone read it? It's a really, really short book on purpose, and he says that. So he was a guy who reached the 1 million mile mark on air travel. Like, there's a thing, I don't know about it, but apparently you can reach like 1 million miles and then it's like a thing. He obviously traveled a lot, yeah. And then he wrote a book that starts by saying everything you want and everything you need is right in your backyard. Which is, from a guy who's done that amount of travel, you listen, you're like, oh really? You went everywhere and you think the best idea is to just stay at home. He now lives in a small village outside of Japan and reduced his life completely, and it's really, really simple. And his whole book, and I thought it was going to be about meditation, The Art of Stillness. And it was really about doing nothing. Nothing. And he said, even I don't want to write more in this book because I don't want you to read this book more. I want you to put the book down and do nothing. Yeah, it's really cool. And in that book, he also says that we need, and this really struck me, we need at least 25 minutes to recover from one telephone conversation. Yeah, like mentally, energetically, like, process what just happened. I mean, think about your day. Going from one conversation to the next meeting, to the thing, and then of course all the distraction in between with the phone. We don't get time to be bored, ever. Not anymore. It's too easy to not do that. And I'm not a mother, but I do unfortunately have to spend time with some children sometimes. I like some of them. But they're not allowed to be bored. They're so overscheduled. Their schedule is more hardcore than mine. They're going from like music to soccer to this training to this homework, and it's a Saturday. They're so busy, and they kind of get really irritated and annoyed if they're not entertained all the time. All the time. I'm really sorry for parents. It's unbelievable, like the amount of entertaining that they have to do. And I think it's because we don't know how to be, the adults don't know how to be bored. So of course the children don't know how to be bored. We're like, oh my goodness, I have like 3 seconds, what do? Phone. Like, it's our best idea. And of course they're not gonna learn if they don't see mom just sitting there like, what are you doing? Nothing. Why don't you give it a try? So I think there's this culture of busyness. And I know especially now with Christmas, and everyone says that, right? I'm so busy, I'm so busy, I'm so busy. What if we were really revolutionary, especially at this time, and someone said, what are you doing? Nothing. And I mean it. I'm not busy. So cool. It's kind of cool, right? Okay. So because I like to, as I said before, get really practical about these things, and I've moved away now from a very, very hardcore, disciplined, I'm not disciplined. It looks like I am, but I'm not. I practice yoga every day. Yes, I do mindfulness practices. That's what I mean when I say I look disciplined to a lot of people. They call me disciplined. And I'm really not. It's just that they've become these habits in my life. But I've made them accessible so that everyone can do them, no matter how busy you are. And this whole idea of doing nothing and being bored is really easy to integrate into your life. So here are some ideas. Have a shower without listening to music or a podcast. Who takes music into the shower? I mean, not obviously into the shower, but yeah, right? Yeah. Yeah, no one else? Really? You guys don't? Okay. Podcasts? No? Yeah, podcasts, yeah. I mean, the shower is something you do, I'm sure, every day, and it's so easy to integrate because there's nothing else to do, right? But be in there, and there's something about the water, and they say these great ideas happen in the shower. Yeah, because you're not doing anything, because you're not distracting yourself. That's why. It's not the magic of the shower, I don't think. And the same thing with the earpods, going to try and do at least one commute where you don't have your earphones in, because this is I know for me, I hear every ping and every email and every message, and it's too difficult for me to ignore. I have to be like, what's that? So even though I want to listen to music, I say, okay, at least one commute. And I ride my bike lots, it's kind of illegal, but anyway. So one commute, I say, okay, no earphones, and just be bored, sitting on the U-Bahn or the train, or like looking around. Another easy thing to integrate, you go to a restaurant with a friend, they go to the bathroom, usually once during your dinner, and then what do? I mean, we feel so awkward sitting there, just being. The other day I was in a cafe, and I decided to do more of what I preach, and I was waiting for a friend. I was early, and I was sitting, and of course the temptation, I always have my iPad with me as well, so the temptation just to work, and I thought, no, just be here, just sit in the awkwardness of it. And I looked outside and I could see onto the street because it was a glass window. And there was a man sitting outside. It was really cold. It was kind of a day like today, really cold. And he was wearing a coat and a hat. And he had his cappuccino. And he was writing a letter. Like nowadays, like what? He was writing a letter and he looked so enraptured. His face was, he was smiling. His cappuccino was getting cold for sure. He didn't drink it. And he was so absorbed in the moment. And I was so absorbed in the moment because I was looking at him and it looked like something from a movie. His hat, the coat, writing a letter, you know, like framed by this thing. And it was such a beautiful moment for me, and a moment I would absolutely have not seen or borne witness to if I did what I usually do, which was give in to being awkwardly, silently bored, and then just, you know, be on the phone or something. And there are these golden, beautiful moments all around us, but we're kind of resistant to this boring thing. Because it doesn't just come like that. Sometimes it's hard. Sometimes you're just like, where's the great insight? Because that also happens. What I noticed when I do this is sometimes it's not a great insight or a deep creative expression that came out of it. Sometimes it's just like, oh shit, I forgot to do that, you know, which is actually really important. And I wouldn't have really remembered if I hadn't given myself the space. Yeah. So other cool ways, it's the waiting. I think if you can just tap into, if we can all just tap into, lean into actually, should I say, into the waiting. Waiting to get on a plane, waiting to get off a plane, waiting for a train, waiting for your friend to come back from the bathroom. These little moments in between, they're so dangerous and yet hold so much potential for us. And to sort of move into the state of being rather than doing or being distracted all the time. So I'd like to challenge you all to a 5-day challenge. We decided it was 5 days. Yeah. A 5-day challenge of integrating this sense of silence and sense of boredom and seeing what comes up. I know some of you, we posted something on Instagram earlier in the week or last week, what silence meant to you, and there was a lot of you that said being in nature, like walking in the forest and or mountains, or which I think of course is amazing, and there's something very special about being in nature that gives us that sense and that energy. But I even want to say that's even doing something, you know, because you're still sort of feeding off this bigger thing. So I'd really love to hear from you for the next 5 days. If you're going to post it on Facebook, or, you know, how did you get bored? You know, and how did you find ways to integrate this? And was there value? Maybe it isn't. Maybe it's like, no, forget it. I'm back on Instagram, you know. Poor Instagram, they're always the, you know, like the people we blame. Yeah. So yeah, I'd really like to welcome you into the challenge. I'm so curious to hear from others as well, so that I don't feel so alone, like I'm the only crazy person in the world. So yeah, I hope that you'll join me on that challenge. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Cherryl, for this talk. I hope that you guys saw as much value as I did. I think especially in this December moment when we are actually like expected as well to run around, like be busy and like make the most of every second, you know, to be on time, to make sure that we have all the presents, to finish all the things before all the, you know, holidays come in. I think it's so valuable. So I totally hope that you guys are gonna join in this challenge. We will spread the word as well over the newsletter, so stay tuned. But I would like to open the floor for questions to Cherryl. I guess you may have some, so make the most of it. Who wants to ask a question? There at the back?
It's more, I'm going to share more than ask a
Yes,
question.
please.
My name is Isabella, I'm from São Paulo, and I suffer from anxiety, And my way of connecting with myself when I'm really bored, because when I'm bored I feel freaking anxious.
Yeah.
And then the cell phone kind of makes me feel even more. So I try to avoid it. And as a millennial, like I'm 23, people are really like, why are you not posting on Instagram? Why are you so, you know? And my way of connecting with myself, that it really, really works, and also my flatmate thinks I'm pretty kind of crazy. It's a big sink full of dishes. Seriously, it's 20 minutes that I'm gonna be there, and I'm gonna patiently wash the plates, and it's so satisfying to my house. You guys are not nuts. It's so freaking satisfying, and I'm not thinking about anything else, because sometimes I don't have time. Well, sorry to give this kind of excuse, but sometimes I do not do yoga every day, and when I don't do it to get better with myself, I'm like, okay, so I'm gonna wash tons of dishes today. Julia, leave all the dishes for me, please. I'm not, really. And like, I'm there, and I don't need to think about anything else. I just think about the plate.
Do you tune into the sounds of the dishes and the feeling of the serve? Yeah, that's great.
So peaceful to me. Seriously, I recommend.
Thank you. Okay, there you go. There's an idea. I think it's not if your roommate ever leaves you, you'll have a lot of people Okay. Yes.
It's very hard, actually. Sometimes, well, very rarely you can say that. I hope you're not insulted by me saying, for the last half an hour I was very bored with your talk.
No, absolutely not. I found it a compliment.
That was a joke.
And what great insight did you have from that?
Yeah, that's coming now. So,
Yes.
I think it's very interesting how you describe it, because when you say when you're in nature, you're still doing something. When you were sitting in a cafe looking at the guy writing the letter, you were still doing something.
True.
So it's about the engagement with that moment, whatever you have. And I think the challenge is, how do you disengage yourself?
Mm-hmm.
And that's also where you're coming from. Like, you know, the silence of the meditation is, how do you disengage? When you meditate, you are still engaging with yourself.
Absolutely. Yes.
And that's why I also like the example just now. When you do the dishes, you might disengage with everything, because you're switching off your head. You don't only do something with your hands.
Yes.
I don't do meditation, I don't do yoga, I don't do any of this. But I was trained in boredom as well, because my first job as an apprentice when I was 16 years old or 17 years old was with the German government. 2.5 years. It was a very intensive training.
I'd say you're an expert.
Because that's what you did. You were just coming to the office and they said, like, nothing to do, just sit there. You had to stay for 8 hours. And I wonder how many people in their offices have the same thing, that they have times in the day when they sit there and disengage by doing something.
Yes.
Because they're not thinking, they're not looking, they're just like, I don't know, even browsing can be extremely boring.
Yes.
For me also, I ride a motorcycle where I have to switch off everything, only my deeper senses of like, okay, reacting to something I acted, everything else is gone.
Yeah.
And I think this disengagement, so an activity can also be extremely boring.
Yes.
So it's like,
So you're saying it's the quality of the attention,
yeah,
or
absolutely.
the quality of the engagement.
Yeah, because what you describe as well, I enjoy it so much. I always walk around, I always sit there in a cafe or anywhere where I just stare at something for a long time.
You're
But
very
then,
unique.
But then something happens, and it's like I'm engaging with that again, and I'm active. But
exactly.
while I wait for it, you know,
Yes.
and so I do a lot of creativity, in creativity, also creativity studies and talks and so on. And you're absolutely right, through boredom, because you have to be comfortable with the uncomfortable. And again, you know what you just described. How do you get through that uncomfort? And children do that as well. They have to feel the pain.
Yes.
Because you have to get through
That's
that.
such a great point. That is such a great point. Yeah.
And it's only then when creativity actually, because you have to deal with that moment and something arises.
You have to innovate.
There's this.
Or you're just uncomfortable.
I was last year on an event called the House of Beautiful Business. Maybe some of you know it. Very nice. They have the 1 hour silence. So that just 1 hour where the whole crowd, 400 people, just that's it. Nothing.
Yeah, for 1
They're
hour.
just
Yeah,
silent.
great.
You can't talk.
That's like
But the interesting part is that they kind of like start with being uncomfortable. So nobody, the awkward moment of silence, they're all like staring at each other and what do we do now? But that's creating a void. And the natural tendency of people is like, if there's a void, they want to fill it. And that's where creativity comes up.
Yes.
So it's amazing after half an hour what people do with the silence without talking, but they still do something. And it's always something new. It's extremely
cool.
creative.
That's great. Thank you. That's really, really great. I think that makes it very clear. And motivating, right?
There is a question in the back.
Just 2 points. The first one is for those of us that are not digital natives, maybe a few here, it is really, you can't underscore enough the point you made about how much technology has changed this. I mean, when I was in school, like email was just coming out. I still wrote paper letters to my friends. And now, since smartphones, I just noticed how my attention span has gone out the window. And I can still remember when life wasn't like this. And then just the other point is about kids. I think you're totally right. On the other side of that, we have a almost 3-year-old. And my husband is, you know, into mindfulness, and he's like, I'm just gonna go listen to my headspace. And I feel like sometimes saying, you just need to spend 45 minutes with our 2-year-old and go outside, because they will take 45 minutes to go about 15 meters. And it's really hard. You have to, they can teach you so much about this, because you don't want to be on your phone with your kid, and you just have to be there with them while they'll play with this cup and it's really, it is like the best mindfulness training out there. So, but you're right. Our temptation is to keep them occupied all the time, and I think that's the absolute wrong thing to do.
I'm so glad. I'm so happy to hear that, really. More people like you, please, for the kids.
There's the question in the front.
So first of all, thank you so much for this great lecture. I really learned a lot, and what I take in total from everything that you said is like to learn how to embrace boredom for the result it brings us, like for the awareness and for the connection with ourselves, because I think that this is what makes us more coming home to ourselves, and also when we are really in ourselves, we can connect more with others. So thank you so much.
Yes, thank you.
I am doing creative art workshops combining mindfulness and art, and I am Mexican, and I've been doing this here in Germany, and I have the feeling that Germans are so hardworking that sometimes it's not so easy to find this moment of, okay, let's just close our eyes and do nothing, because somehow I think they have the feeling that they are losing time or something like this. So that was also the idea of doing this, and I think when we embrace this not doing nothing, like you said, not doing nothing, and being more aware of our surrounding, even we don't have to think much about it, then we are also feeling more happy. So yes.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, that's a pleasure. Thanks.
I also liked when you said that actually you don't even see your parents doing nothing, and this is also resulting from growing up in Germany. It's not good to do nothing.
Yes.
My parents say like we do this, we do that, you know, like it's not a good thing. It's not a value of being bored, you know.
No,
and just sit and
unproductive,
do nothing.
lazy.
Yeah, you always have to be productive, and if you just want to sit down, you better read a book, you know, like. But I really like what you said, that we actually, it's good to be a good
Role model.
role model. Thank you for your kids.
Yes. No. Cool. Thank you.
Maybe one final question or comment? Yeah, there.
The thought that is going through my mind, like, why is it so awkward, the silence? And there is a difference in silence with people in a social setting or with myself, and why is the silence with people so awkward? Like what? Like, I mean, we all know that, but my thinking goes maybe because then I suddenly feel things that I don't want to feel. Like this distracting thing is, in my perception, like trying to distract me from something that I might not allow or something. And then, I mean, it's, why is it so awkward? And sometimes everybody's not
try
awkward.
answer for me, because I thought about it, and for me it's about, I think, authenticity. And I think when you're quiet, you can't fake it.
Yeah.
Because if you're silent, there's nothing to distract the other person from your big show, you know, like we use words and movement and stories to create that construct, that identity. And if you're just quiet, you might be feeling something and it shows. And you can't hide it. And I think that makes us feel vulnerable, and therefore, I think.
In the social context is also, when you're engaging with another person, again, when there's silence, there's this moment of disengagement. You're like, okay, she's not interested anymore, so what's happening now? So I'm not living up to what you just said, who I should be, who I should show. But then silence is also, it's a powerful tool in user research. When you talk to people and you want to find out something on a deeper level, exactly what you said, you stay silent, because people, don't like that uncomfort, and they will break the silence. The question is always who's stronger. So if you stay silent, the other person will tell you exactly the same thing that they told you before, only with more detail, in a different story, in a different context, so they give you more. Fantastic. So it's also a very powerful tool to be silent.
There's actually, can I just say something?
Please, go ahead.
There's actually, I meant to mention this, but I forgot. There's a woman called Nancy Klein, and she's written a couple of books called Time to Think. And her whole premise is incredible. And I use this actually in corporates, when we, with organizations, with listening. When you change the quality of how you listen, meaning you must be quiet, you're silent actually. When you change the quality of how you listen, it improves the other person's thinking. So you actually change and improve how they think just by how you listen. So if you kind of find that you're around people that repeat themselves or a bit boring or whatever, pay attention to how you're listening to them. So that means no interrupting, no putting your opinion on, not even too much affirmation even, but just silent, and that's what you're saying. It improves and changes the level of thinking, and therefore the quality of communication. It's amazing. Nancy Klein, she's great. Yeah.
Can I just say something about it? Sorry. So I'm a psychologist, and often people, I'm currently specializing on clinical psychology, and people often ask me how I know what to say when people tell something difficult also, for example. And I'm really advocating for a better communication. And I think listening to people is so important, because oftentimes when people say something and we want to say something really smart or good or inspiring, we think about our answer while they're talking. And I think it's much more important to first just listen. Then sometimes I also say I'm just going to take a few seconds to think about that, and then I answer. So I think that listening part is so important for good communication, because we mostly don't think about what people say, but what we're going to answer to that, and we miss a lot of information.
Do you want to say more? Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I totally agree. And that's what she also makes a big point of talking about.
Good. So I'm super happy to see this was I think one of the most interactive discussions that we had. It was not just questions for you, which shows that this did speak to a lot of us here in the room. So thank you, Cherryl, so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you guys for coming. Our next event is going to take place in January, the last Friday in January. So stay tuned. If you're not subscribed to our newsletter, do subscribe so that you get a newsletter as soon as the new date is out. I would like to recall you that today we did for the first time a book swap. So basically we invited everyone to bring books that they feel they would like to pass on to someone else. There is a desk there in the middle. So if you brought a book, you're of course more than invited to take another book home. We will be doing this more often, because this time it was really the first time, and a lot of people missed it in the newsletter, and when they came here and they saw it, they were really excited about this. So we are thinking of repeating this. So stay tuned about this as well. But apart from this, I would really like to wish you, in the name of all of the Creative Mornings team, amazing holidays. I hope that you guys really find time for yourself, for your families, that it's not this, hectic part, but it's really quality time, and that you come back in the new year full of energy, and that we will be seeing you then in 2020. Thanks so much for being here with us, and have an amazing Friday and then the weekend. Thank you guys.